Employee one is having a family emergency. So you turn to employee two and ask if they can shoulder a task or two to cover for employee one's family emergency situation. And employee two says, "That's not my job." And instantly you start to feel emotions rise up in you: frustration, anger, disappointment, annoyance. And so you say, excuse me, I asked you to do it. I'm your boss and I need you to do it. Wrong. Let's try again. They say, "That's not my job." And instantly you feel the emotions rise up, but this time it's insecurity, it's fear of conflict, it's people pleasing. So you say, "Oh, okay, I get it. Your plate's full. Never mind. I'll figure it out." Eh, Wrong again. When your employee says, "That's not my job," and you feel tempted to either demand compliance or back down, there's actually a third option. And today we're diving into the better conversation you can have instead. I want to start by saying this is really hard. If you have a team member respond like this, it's easy to make all sorts of assumptions about them that probably aren't true. But regardless of whether those assumptions are true or not, they trigger reactions in us that can derail the whole conversation. And it's hard to know what to do when that happens. It's in these kinds of moments I remember thinking, I would love this job if it weren't for the people. And you know that feeling, don't you? So I just want to take a minute and just acknowledge peopling is hard. And sometimes our people's reactions just suck. And it's easy to feel like, seriously, can you just do what I'm asking? Especially in the example scenario I opened with, right? In this scenario, you're asking for temporary help to support a coworker. Is that too much to ask? And regardless of the reason, I'm your boss. So yeah, it is your job. And this is a natural reaction. Another natural reaction is to feel like the pushback is an attack on your leadership. And sometimes we fear that if we don't enforce what we have asked, then we're going to lose authority, we're going to lose respect, and that is scary. And then other times we're just so exhausted by all the conversations, all the peopling that we have to do that we're just tempted to shut down, especially when we feel like it is their job or when we don't think we're asking too much. All that I have just described is our side of the sphere. Remember, there's always this invisible sphere between you and the person you're talking to, and you can only see your side clearly. You can't see all sides of the sphere at the same time. And so the perspective that you see shapes what you assume the other side looks like. So when you're receiving resistance from an employee, recognize it as a red alert light on your dashboard. It is a signal that something is happening on the other side of the sphere, something you can't see yet. So I drive a Chrysler Pacifica minivan, best car ever made. Someone recently asked me, if you could drive any car, what would it be? And I was confused by the question, obviously, my minivan. But anyway, a few years ago, I unknowingly ran over a sharp piece of metal and one of my tires started to lose air really fast. And I didn't hear it. I didn't feel it, but the dashboard lit up with a warning. And the little display in front of me that had a picture of my car showed the back tire pressure dropping really quick. So lights were flashing, sounds were chiming off. My car was telling me something I couldn't see yet, but something that would become a real issue if I ignored it. But because I paid attention, I avoided further damage, right? I pulled over. I kept me and my kids in the car safe, and I directed my resources, my attention to the cause of the problem. The sounds and the lights weren't the problem, they were just the warning. And similarly, every Friday night at our house, it's pizza party, best night of the week. I make homemade pizza. We sit on the floor, we watch a show as a family, but without fail, every week, the smoke alarm goes off when I open the oven. And it's not a problem. I just turn the alarm off. But if there was a real fire, turning off the alarm wouldn't solve anything. The alarm isn't the issue, the fire is. So when your team member says, "That's not my job," they're setting off an alarm for you to hear. Those words aren't the problem. They are the signal, a dashboard warning. And if we choose to see it that way, we can actually be really grateful for the heads up, right? It's an opportunity to learn, to discover what's really going on under the surface, to get a glimpse of their side of the sphere, and maybe even find the piece of metal causing the leak. Their words are the alarm, not the fire. So, with this mindset, we can release urgency. We can release ego. We can move past the shock of what was just said and shift into problem solving instead of just reacting. And I really mean that. Urgency and ego are the two thorns in a leader's side. They're the distractions in our head that we have to fight over and over again. See, the person in front of you is worth the time it takes to sort these things out. And your pride, it can handle some pushback if it means getting to the root issues and serving your people well. And please know, I am not saying this from a place of judgment. I am saying it from a place of complete understanding. So, my 4-year old is cracking me up right now. Lately, she started saying, "How dare you?" Like she's a star in a soap opera. And the other day, she did something herself and she muttered, "How dare me?" It's too good. But I get it. I've had moments where an employee said something like, "That's not my job." And my ego's immediate reaction was, "How dare you?" So, friend, hear me. Your ego is the biggest threat to your success as a leader. No external challenge, no difficult person, no frustrating comment will ever derail your leadership the way your own ego can. So, slow down, check your ego, put on the glasses that help you focus on solutions and not reactions. Now, for the rest of our time together, I'm going to help you figure out what to say. We've talked about how not to react, but what do you actually say and why? And we're only focusing today on the response to "that's not my job." But I've compiled a list of 10 go to phrases to guide tough or uncomfortable conversations with clarity and confidence. And these 10 phrases are based on the top issues I help my own coaching clients work through. So go ahead to heykaralist.com/cheat sheet to download the free Better Conversations cheat sheet today. But let's start with the why. What's the goal here? What do you want to happen from this conversation? And at first glance, it's probably just compliance. I mean, you asked in the first place, you meant what you said, so you want compliance. You want to win the conversation, even if you don't consciously think that. And it makes sense. So, what if instead the goal was to win the relationship and not the conversation? And how you're going to do that is by collecting the information behind the warning sign. You're going to fight against control, fight against confrontation and directives, and lean into three things: curiosity, clarity, and dialogue. And that's what I'm going to break down for you now is curiosity, clarity, and dialogue when they say "that's not my job." First, curiosity. This is the investigation to get a picture of what their side of the sphere looks like. And so curiosity is the opposite of control. Let's set the scene. You assign a new responsibility. You say, "Hey Alex, I'd like you to take the lead on onboarding our new intern next month." Alex replies, "I'm not sure that's really my job. Isn't that something that the admin team usually handles?" And if your default reaction is control, you might feel yourself wanting to say, "Well, actually, it's your job now. I need you to not question it and just handle it." And I would understand that response. I mean, you've got pressures, you've got deadlines, and now you've got this pushback. But that kind of response shuts down the conversation. So the better conversation, it leads with curiosity. So after Alex says, "I'm not sure that's really my job. Isn't that something that the admin team usually handles?" Curiosity would say, "That's a fair question. Can you tell me a bit about what makes it feel outside your role?" So now you're inviting insight. Alex might respond with, "I just didn't expect it. No one mentioned onboarding as part of my responsibilities, and I've got a lot on my plate already." And you could say, "Thanks for sharing that. Let's unpack both your bandwidth, everything that's on your plate, and the expectations around this task because both matter." So, do you see the difference? You aren't backing down on your request, but you're willing to entertain a conversation and learn more about what's really going on. You're looking for the metal in the tire. So, instead of control, reply with curiosity. The next approach is to respond with clarity, not confrontation. So, what does confrontation sound like in response to Alex? This sounds like, "Why are we even having this conversation? Everyone else is stepping up right now. I need you to step up too." Now the conversation has moved from problem solving to power dynamics. And trust me, Nothing shuts people down faster than this power play. So, the better conversation would lead with clarity. You could say, "You're right, the onboarding has usually lived with admin, but since you started mentoring interns on your projects, it makes sense for you to help them start off strong. So, I could have been clear about that shift and had that discussion with you before assigning it." So, now you've clarified the why and you've owned that communication gap that you missed. And that goes a long way in keeping your team open and not defensive. And really, the unnecessary cause of so much conflict in our relationships at work are unclear, undefined, or misaligned expectations. So if we can focus on always being more clear than we think we need to be, it only strengthens relationships and it strengthens performance too. So when tempted to be confrontational in response, seek to provide clarity about expectations and take ownership about how you may have not communicated this well. So, the final default reaction is to lead with directives instead of dialogue. So, leading with a directive might sound like, I need you to figure it out. Do what you have to do to make sure you can take this on for me. So, the better conversation is dialogue, trying something like this. Let's talk through what support you need to feel equipped to do this well. Would a onboarding checklist or a quick walkthrough with the admin help? So you see, directives isolate your employee. It leaves them out on their own to figure out a way to what you want. But dialogue says, I hear you. Okay, let's figure this out together, what you need to feel confident here. And honestly, what you might need to offload. Let me help you figure out what you need to prioritize and see what you need from me to support you. So, right, it creates buy-in, a shared responsibility. So again, curiosity over control, clarity over confrontation, and dialogue over directives. This is the path to a better conversation. Now, I want to be really clear here. The context or perspective that I am framing this conversation around is making an assumption that what you are asking of your employee is reasonable. And yes, within their understood job umbrella. And maybe it is a new task or a temporary solution. And those things might be a little outside of their primary or even their secondary job roles. But overall, this should not come as a surprise out of left field. So I'll give you an example. In one of my earliest jobs after college, I had a boss who would ask me to do things for her fully and completely outside of my job role because my office was in close proximity to hers. So she would ask me, I'm not joking, she would ask me to run out to her car to get something for her out of her car or run a note to the back of the building to someone else's office. And she would say something like, hey, thanks for doing this favor for me. You're just younger and you're quicker than me. You'll get it there faster. And I was legitimately annoyed with these tasks. Absolutely not my job. It made me feel like she didn't value me for the work I was actually doing there, but instead just saw me as someone she could offload little tasks to. And sure, she was super busy. I was quicker, but it didn't respect my time. And a favor here or there, no big deal. Totally happy to help. But this was becoming weird and it was becoming repeated. And I didn't have the nerve, as young as I was, to say, that's not my job. But I certainly thought it. So if you're going to ask someone to do something that is fully outside of their job role, there has to be a solid and significant reason. And that reason has to be well communicated to them before the ask. But again, this episode is based on the premise that what you're asking is not unreasonable. And because of that, the response you're getting is catching you off guard. And if that's truly the case, when someone resists a task or says, that's not my job, it is a perfect moment to address directly while caring well. You essentially want to communicate, I care about you. I care about your experience here. I care about how you're feeling. But I also want to be clear and I want to be better about being clear when it comes to these expectations. So, did you notice I said and, not but? I didn't say I care about you, but I want to be clear about expectations. It is an and. Both are important and both can be addressed without contradicting each other. And remember, resistance and pushback is just a signal. It's just the alarm of the deeper issue. And maybe the deeper issue is role clarity or burnout or feeling unappreciated. Maybe it's fear of failure, fill in the blank. But the point is, you don't know. And our initial response to this kind of pushback is typically an assumption of a character flaw. So it's the fundamental attribution error causing you to see their response and then attributing it to a character issue instead of a deeper unknown thing. So you naturally respond to their response to the symptom. And this gets us nowhere. So, friend, are you willing to show grace and get curious if someone says to you, that's not my job? Are you willing to see the pushback as an opportunity for a partnership instead of a hit to your ego, instead of a challenge to your authority? And I hope you are. I hope you're willing to do that. And I want to leave you with just one phrase. So if you took physical, mental notes, hopefully you have many phrases from this episode you could consider taking with you. But if I could leave you with just one that hits curiosity, clarity, and dialogue all at once, it would be this. When someone says, that's not my job, respond with, I'm glad you're speaking up about this. Tell me more about what's going on here. Then listen and follow up with, tell me more. Do everything you can to understand what is causing the alarms to go off and start a collaborative plan from there. I'm glad you're speaking up about this. Tell me more. Okay, friend, this isn't fun stuff, but it is important. Most leaders just avoid these conversations or they bully their employees when they receive pushback. But you aren't most leaders. You are doing the hard work to care well for your people while at the same time challenging them directly. And that kind of work is the most important work you can be doing. So take heart. If this is happening to you at work, know that you are doing it right. And I'm here to support you every step of the way. So thanks for being here today. Don't forget to download that cheat sheet. You can grab the link in the show notes. And until next week, I'm cheering you on. Bye, friend.